Hello guys, and welcome back to Mrs. DW channel. Today we will be recapping the action movie titled The Killer. So, sit back, relax, and let's get into the video. In an abandoned building in Paris, a man waits. He has no name, no records, no trace. The world knows him only as the killer, a contract assassin with a flawless reputation, without error, without failure, never once missing his mark. He has no feelings, no empathy, only discipline. For 2 days he has remained there, silent, watching the building across the street, waiting for a target who has yet to appear. But for the killer, time is never the enemy. Waiting is part of the plan. He understands that patience is the sharpest weapon of all. His ritual never changes. Music flows through his headphones. Yoga. Push-ups. Simple movements. Controlled breathing. An empty mind. Discipline is not a choice, it is a necessity. Day after day passes without results. 5 days of waiting, with no certainty. A faint voice over the phone finally breaks the silence, an incoming call from Edward Hogues, the intermediary between the killer and his clients. No small talk. Only instructions. The job must be completed immediately. Under his cover, the killer poses as a tourist from Germany. The reason is simple: the French rarely engage with German tourists. The sooner he is forgotten, the safer he remains. He records every movement, who comes in, who walks out. Everything is noted. Everything is calculated. As evening approaches, the killer returns to his hideout. The window becomes his observatory. He reminds himself of the rules: stick to the plan, anticipate, never improvise, and above all, trust no one. Each hour drags on. Night finally falls. The rifle is assembled, each component checked one by one, no room for error. Suddenly, the door opens. A man steps inside without permission. The killer's reflexes kick in, ready to fire. But there is no threat, only a newspaper delivery man who has entered the wrong room. The next second, the room falls silent again. Time is the primary parameter. He attempts to rest. But for a killer, sleep is not an escape. Sleep is merely another phase of surveillance. Set with an alarm every 5 minutes, ensuring the watch never truly ends. At last, the lights in the apartment across the street turn on. A man enters with a woman. This is the target, a corrupt official. The dryness in his throat does not break his focus. Earbuds in. Music on. Gloves secured. The killer takes aim. The target stands clearly in his sight, a wealthy man with powerful connections, and countless sins. One breath. One shot. The trigger tightens. Stick to the plan. Anticipate. Don't improvise. Trust no one. Forbid empathy. But something happens. A small movement, beyond calculation, the woman suddenly shifts position, creating chaos that was never part of the plan. The killer knows instantly, the mission has failed. He does not look twice. In a heartbeat, every plan shifts to escape protocol. The procedure is clear: disappear, discard the weapon, change identity. There is no time for panic. Helmet on. Engine running. The streets of Paris begin to flood with police. The killer slips out of sight, tossing his equipment into a passing garbage truck. Every turn has been predicted, every step memorized. There is no fear. No regret. Only one objective: vanish from the radar. At last, the airport becomes his destination. But even there is no sense of safety. Too many officers. Too many cameras. He waits among the crowd, his face expressionless, his mind razor-focused. A cap shadows his features, a ticket in hand, a false name printed in his passport. Before long, the killer contacts his superior, Hogues. The voice on the other end is cold. Hogues cannot believe that someone as efficient as him could fail. It has never happened before. But one thing is certain: every mistake must be paid for. Inside the plane, the killer's gaze locks onto a figure, a man who has been watching him from the very beginning. His movements are suspicious, too subtle to be coincidence. When the flight lands for transit, the stare returns. The same man. The same eyes. Still following from a distance. Waiting. Observing. His instincts signal danger. The killer knows this is no accident. He refuses to take risks. He postpones the connecting flight and chooses to spend the night at an airport hotel instead. There, he places a glass on the door handle, a simple warning device. If anyone tries to enter, the vibration will be enough to wake him. The next morning, the killer resumes his journey. This time, there is no disturbance, the mysterious man is gone. The sky is clear as the plane carries him to the Dominican Republic, his old refuge. Beneath the country's tropical calm, he keeps something warmer. A small house far from the city, where his wife waits. The long drive begins. The killer moves along endless roads. The beautiful scenery fails to catch his attention. His focus is singular, the house at the end of the road. But the moment he arrives, a bad feeling sets in. Cigarette butts scattered on the ground. Footprints pressed into the dirt. He knows what it means. Danger has arrived before him. There is no time to think. The killer steps inside, pistol raised, clearing each room one by one. The kitchen. The living room. The bedroom. Everything is in disarray. There are bloodstains. Shattered glass. And most important of all, Magdala, his wife, is gone. It doesn't take long for him to find the answer. Magdala is in the hospital. The killer rushes there, and in one of the rooms, he finds his wife lying weak on a bed. Her body is covered in bruises, her life hanging by a thread. Marcus, Magdala's younger brother, pieces together what happened. Two people, a large man and a woman, arrived in a green taxi, crashed into the house, and attacked without hesitation. They were looking for the killer. But the only one they found was his wife. When Magdala opens her eyes, her voice is weak but resolute. She never revealed who her husband truly was, even as she was beaten and forced to speak. From her wounds and the whispers of her family, the killer understands, two people came looking for him. Two people who chose the wrong target. That night, the killer returns home. Beneath the floorboards, a hidden chamber opens. A concealed safe holds weapons, false passports, and neatly stacked cash. He knows what must be done. Everything will be repaid in blood. The next morning, the hunt begins. The killer drives through the city streets, tracking his prey. The only clue he has is a green taxi. When night falls, he goes to the rental office. But when the door opens, he is not a passenger, he is a hunter. From the trip records, the killer extracts everything he needs: faces, locations, and one name, Leo. The driver who brought the two attackers to his house. But before making his move, a small gift is sent to Hogs and his assistant, Dolores, a package prepared 2 days earlier. Part of a larger plan. After that, the killer waits. He studies his first target, Leo. Leo has just begun his day, driving his taxi as usual. The killer follows the car, then disguises himself as a passenger. He slips into the back seat like any ordinary customer. Nothing seems suspicious at first. Until, a few minutes later, from the back seat, Leo nervously hands over his wallet. But money isn't what the killer wants. He wants only one thing: information. One short sentence: tell me everything. The ride home turns into a confession under threat: descriptions, locations, routes. Leo tells him everything. Two strangers, one large man, one thin woman. They rented a car, asked to be driven to a remote house in the middle of the woods, even forced him to wait outside for hours. He doesn't know who they are. He doesn't know what they did. He was only doing his job. But the explanation is not enough. In the killer's world, there is no room for only. Every involvement is a sin. Every witness is a threat. No drama. Only procedure. The killer steps out of the car without expression, without emotion. The revenge mission has begun. A new false passport is taken. The next destination, America. And all set, Mr. Conham. Have a pleasant trip. The following day, the killer arrives in the United States. His objective is clear: Hogs. He rents a cargo van, a vehicle that will serve as both disguise and mobile headquarters. His journey does not lead directly to the target. First, he makes a stop at a storage facility, one of many secret units he maintains across different cities. Inside are various weapons, multiple false identities, and license plates from different states. The next step has been planned long before this moment. The killer stops at a hardware store, purchasing tools, buying a large trash bin, preparing a disguise as a sanitation worker. Every detail is calculated. 2 days earlier, he had already sent a package to Hoag's office and to his assistant, Dolores. When the delivery courier arrives with the parcel, the killer is already waiting. He follows from a distance. Time and distance are measured perfectly. Once inside, the killer waits. Waiting for the right moment. The courier is still in the office, handing over the package. Dolores smiles, pleased to receive what she believes is a gift. She has no idea danger is closing in. As soon as the delivery is completed, the killer makes his move. Dolores freezes. Fear is written clearly across her face. A few seconds later, the killer was already inside Hoag's room, the man who served as the middleman between him and his clients. No introductions were needed. Hoag's recognized that look instantly. The look of a man who hadn't come to talk. His hands were tied, while Dolores was locked inside the bathroom. The conversation between them was brief. Hoag's tried to explain that all of this was merely the consequence of the killer's failure to execute a high-profile target. He offered a solution: disappear, vanish from the radar, and consider everything settled. But the killer wasn't interested in advice. He wanted only one thing: the names of the people behind the attack on his wife. No compromise. Still, Hoag's refused to talk. He made excuses, tried to deflect, even offered peace. He was convinced the killer wouldn't dare kill him. He was wrong. "I wish you well." Cold. No emotion. No drama. A nail was driven in. An alternative was offered: 6 minutes to save himself. A phone was placed before his eyes, 911 already dialed. One condition: the names. Hoag's remained silent. The 6 minutes promise turned into 6 seconds to death. Now it was Dolores' turn. When faced with the certainty of death, Dolores offered a deal. Make her death look natural so her children could receive the insurance money. In return, she would give the killer everything he needed to know. Weakness is vulnerability. Hoag's was already discarded like trash. Everything was done calmly. Clean. No traces. No anger. No expression. As if death were nothing more than routine. That night, their journey continued. Dolores was taken away in the same van until they arrived at her house. As the killer moved to open the garage, Dolores tried to break free, but it was useless. Inside the house, the killer finally obtained 2 crucial pieces of information: the identities of the men who attacked his wife, and one name: Claiborne, the client who had commissioned the Paris assassination from the very beginning. Once he had what he came for, the killer honored Dolores' request. A death that looked natural. A broken neck. Night swallowed the city. The next task was cleanup. The killer returned to his storage warehouse. Inside a trash barrel, one last thing remained: Hoag's. One by one, the killer erased the traces of his past. 6 parts. 6 pieces. Some were thrown into the sea. Others were buried in remote ground. Nothing was left behind. Nothing that could be traced. After the cleanup, the killer spent the night in a small roadside motel. By morning, he cleaned the car, wiping away the remnants of the night before, then ate a modest meal. No guilt. No second thoughts. The next destination: Florida. That was where his next target was. A large man known as the Brute, one of the men who had attacked Magdala. From a distance, the killer observed the house. A massive pit bull guarded the property. A minor threat, but one that still had to be calculated. For that, he needed one thing. The next move would have to wait. The killer knew the time wasn't right. Daylight was no hour to carry out a mission. Too many eyes to witness. Too many voices to scream. Night was his ally. So he waited. He studied every movement, every habit, shadowing the man from one bar to the next club throughout the night. Until finally, the big man returned home alone. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The killer began to move in. A massive pit bull barked relentlessly from behind the fence. But the killer had already calculated that. Without a sound, he tossed a piece of meat laced with sedatives over the fence. Patiently, he waited. Within minutes, the barking stopped. Silence. The path was clear. The killer stepped inside. Every movement measured, nearly soundless. His pistol raised. He cleared each room one by one. From behind a door, he heard running water. The target was in the shower. Everything was unfolding according to plan. Then suddenly, everything exploded into violence. No tactics this time. Only raw brutality. Chairs, glass, walls, shattered into chaos. This was no longer about life or death. It was a clash of equals. 2 killing machines testing each other's endurance and instinct. Blood spilled. The air tightened with suffocating tension. In the end, only one remained standing. A pit bull's growl erupted through the air. The animal charged in a frenzy. The killer ran, bursting through the door at full speed. One final step to ensure nothing was left behind: a Molotov cocktail. The next destination: New York. In this city, the next target awaited: the expert. An elegant female assassin who masked her savagery with a smile and expensive perfume. She was one of the two who had attacked Magdala. For hours, the killer waited outside her house, studying her every movement. As night approached, she stepped out wearing a long coat, heading into the city. The killer followed her car, keeping his distance. He almost pulled the trigger when the expert stopped at a red light, but instinct held him back. Surveillance cameras watched from every corner of the streets. Eventually, she stopped at a luxury restaurant. This time, the killer did not hide. He chose a direct approach. When the gun was raised, the woman did not panic, but she knew exactly who was sitting across from her. Their conversation was cold, an exchange between two professionals who both understood that one of them would die that night. In a low voice, she spoke at length about their line of work. She tried to bargain for sympathy, tried to unsettle him with a moral tale about a hunter who shoots a bear, about the endless cycle of attack and retaliation. But to the killer, they were nothing more than empty words. He hadn't come to listen to philosophy. He had come to end something. When dinner was over, they walked out toward the park. The woman tried one last trick, pretending to stumble and asking for his help. But the killer never trusted human gestures. He saw the small blade concealed in her hand. The final step would take him to Chicago. Now only one name remained. The final target, Henderson Claiborne. The client. The man who had commissioned the first assassination. The source of all this chaos. The killer waited and observed from a distance until he learned that Claiborne's apartment was protected by a modern security system with restricted door access. For an ordinary person, it would be a barrier. For the killer, it was only a matter of time. He ordered a key duplicating device online, posed as a member of the gym in the same building, and purchased a weapon from the black market. Every step carried out with strict discipline. Every detail recorded. Every possibility considered. When the ordered device finally arrived, the operation began. First, posing as a gym member, he removed the access card. Second, when the target left his locker unattended, he took the card from the man's wallet, cloned it using the device he had purchased, then returned everything without leaving a trace. The procedure was clean. Access created. Schedule monitored. Vulnerabilities observed. Until night fell. When the parking gate opened, the killer slipped inside. The clone card worked. He took the elevator straight to the penthouse. He entered quietly. The client, a wealthy man, stared at him in confusion. The billionaire did not recognize the killer, and panic set in as a gun was raised to his face. The killer presented proof of his involvement. He wanted to confirm only one thing. Was Claiborne the one who had ordered the attack on Magdala? But the client's explanation only gave rise to new doubt. It turned out Claiborne was merely a novice in this world, unaware of the real game being played. All of it had been Hoag's initiative, the intermediary he had hired. He claimed he knew nothing. He had even paid extra simply for the service of erasing traces. He had never intended to harm anyone, least of all Magdala. The killer stared at him for a long moment. There was no sign of deception. No reason to pull the trigger. Slowly, he lowered his weapon and delivered a single sentence, a new gross that sounded more like a promise. If Claiborne ever tried anything again, his death would come slowly. And painfully. And with that, it was over. The killer returned to the Dominican Republic. The sea shimmered beneath the late afternoon sun. He sat beside Magdala, who was beginning to recover. No more gunshots. No more footsteps in the night. Only the sound of waves, coming and going. Thank you for watching.